Only 8 men have won the shootout after qualifying fastest. That's out of 24 run-offs. That's the bad news for John Bowe. The good news is the pole sitter hasn't won since Brock and Richards back in 1978. So it could go any way. Making up the 15, Ritter and Jones. Ritter at the wheel.
Greg Ritter, car number 18, the Shell Helix Ford Falcon. And as you mentioned, Billy, there's some good news also for the back of the field as far as the top 15 shootout goes. The last 3 years, the winner of the Bathurst 1000 has started from 10th or lower on the grid as Greg Ritter now takes it up Mountain Straight for the first time today. Excellent conditions for driving. The track temperature 28 degrees, the ambient temperature 21 degrees. He's been a real find for the Shell Helix race team, Ritter. In fact, he's out-qualified the other pairing of Radisich and Johnson. He'll be teamed with Alan Jones for this weekend. Takes it right to the wall on the Conacher bend.
To the 2:10.31 in the warm-up for the top 15 shootout this morning. 1999 Formula 4 champion has been a standout for Shell. Finished 4th outright in this race last year. He's back for another crack. There's the team boss, Dick Johnson. Daughter watching on in the background. Nervous moment for the team owner. Everything on the line here.
He was there in the shootout at Bathurst last year, and as you mentioned, he finished 4th. He's in fact had 2 top 10 finishes here at Mount Panorama in the last 3 years. We'll split the times up for you across the mountains, down Conrod Straight, and then they've got to post the time for the other guys to beat. 14 men to come after Greg Ritter.
No room for error down here. Really threading the needle, just brushing those concrete walls on this run down. Just misses the apex by a fraction. Looks like the brakes may have nipped up a bit there. On the exit to the elbow, down Conrod Straight. Greg Ritter, first man on the track.
That will have cost him just a little bit then, Mark, because you want to make an ideal exit from Forest Elbow, maximise your pace down Conrod Straight. A little recorrection of the steering and throttle there would be 3 or 4 k's softer down here than you want to be.
Under brakes, hear that engine screaming right on the rev limiter, 7,500 RPM through the chase. 2 more corners to go for Greg Ritter.
Up over the rise and underneath the Dunlop Bridge, he brings it around now to complete the 1-lap dash for car number 18. And Greg Ritter posts a 2:10.065.
I didn't get enough temperature into the front tyres, and the car had quite a lot of understeer across the top through Reed Park. You know, it was reasonably clean apart from the understeer. You know, we were hoping for a mid to high 9, and, you know, we didn't get it, so...
Fingers crossed now for the rest of the shootout.
Paul Morris, hard under brakes in the Cirame Wines Commodore. Sets out on his hot lap. Did a 2:10.76 in the warm-up this morning. It was the last and final finisher in the Queensland 500. Finished in 26th with Wayne Wakefield. Looking forward to a stronger performance at Mount Panorama this weekend.
4 new tyres for the newly married, in fact, Paul Morris. Married his longtime girlfriend, Lainey Morgan, just the other week, and in typical Paul Morris style, unveiled a new Hawaiian shirt and had no shoes for the occasion. So Paul Morris also had a really scary incident. There she is, Lainey. Congratulations to you. A real scary incident yesterday in qualifying, in fact, was sent spearing over the top of the mountain and into the sand trap and was left shaking his head. There was some oil dumped in the car in front of him. He managed already to have posted a good enough time to make the top 15 shootout. The Cirame Wines entry now takes it up around Falcon Corner, brings it up to the top of the mountain.
A little bit slower at the first split, and you can hear that tyre, the front tyres on that car really protesting in turn 1 with a little bit of understeer, so they possibly weren't fully up to temperature. That possibly made his run up Mountain Straight a little slower than ideal.
Down the mountain, it's a great shot from our cherry picker. Has the car high up on the curbs. You can see that puff of dust. Using all the roading to get those tyres on, down through Victoria, then a dipper. On the approach to the elbow, as you saw with Greg Ritter, a little mistake. The approach to that turn could have cost him time. Looks like a nice clean exit for Paul Morris as he comes onto Conrod Straight.
Podium finish here on the mountain in 1999 alongside Mark Skaife, 12th for the last 2 years.
He's only 1/10 of a second slower than Greg Ritter at the second split, so he's carrying plenty of speed.
2:10.065 is the time to beat, set by Ritter. The final stages of this lap for Paul Morris through the chase. Keeps it nice and clean, not a puff of dirt behind car number 29, Holden Commodore. have to go inside the 210s because you're going to need to do that to get pole position here. The times have been electrifying. It's a little bit loose. It goes 2:10, 5.61.
Well, at the second split, you were just 1/10 of a second slower than Greg Ritter, but you dropped another 4/10 on the third. Was it a bit slow? Was something wrong there?
Yeah, I just didn't have enough heat in the fronts, but look, I'm very happy with that. We've had a rough year, and to be in the shootout at Bathurst is a pretty good thing for the team.
4 fresh tyres for the Holden Young Lions entry of Rick Kelly, the 19-year-old. What an impact he's had in his first full season of V8 supercar racing. He's qualified in the top 10 for the last 3 rounds and was one of only 3 cars to make it into this top 15 shootout from the second qualifying session. Car 02 did a best time of 2:10.097 in that qualifying session and really needs to post a 09 at least to get up the front of the grid. Bob J and Team Arts 1000.
And he squeezed that time in pretty late yesterday, Matthew. He was going very well in the first 2 sectors on a couple of occasions, but for some reason, I don't know whether it was traffic or maybe his rhythm wasn't quite right, in his third sector, he seemed to lose some time, and then very late in the session, he got the third sector together and strung together an excellent time.
Co-driver Nathan Pretty watching on from the pits, the Young Lions team. Done a terrific job under Pete Smith this year, getting better and better as the season's progressed. Into 2:10.19 in the warm-up this morning. Australian Drivers' Champion. He and Nathan Pretty did 139 laps at the Queensland 500 before they retired. They certainly threw down the gauntlet. They're knocking on the door of a 2:09 here. He's about 3/10 of a second faster than the fastest man so far after the first split. So looking good so far for the youngster. 19 years of age, Rick Kelly, the Australian Drivers' Champion. 2001. Down to the elbow, right over the white line on the approach.
That looked like an excellent approach to Forest Elbow. Then he gave himself all of the available space. Got the throttle on nice and early on the exit out of Forest Elbow. He had good terminal speed down here.
Fastest on sector 2 as well. 1:28.02. He's about a 10th faster than Ritter at the same point of the circuit. There's that engine screaming as he gets into the brakes here. 280 kilometres an hour. They've got to wash the speed off in a very short strip of bitumen. Looks like a nice, clean, accurate lap so far for Rick Kelly. Good job under maximum pressure.
Down to the final turn, Murray's corner, the left-hander, around 90 k's. He pumps it out now, takes it onto the ripple strip. And Rick Kelly at 2:10.040. He goes to the top.
Okay, mate, remember you've got to come back into pit lane. That was a good job.
Well, at 2:10.04, that was hell-bent. You're on top. Well done.
Yeah, thanks very much. We planned to get in the top 15, and we're really happy we did. It's a treacherous mountain up there and very difficult conditions to drive in, so we're happy with that. We put in a reasonably clean lap, so roll on the race.
Warming up for his hot lap, car number 5, Glen Seton, already had trouble in warm-up this morning with engine problems.
Oops.
Oh, no. One bad thing to it up.
Well, that is bizarre. It's Glen on the radio. And they're talking about an oil line return and having, I think, come off this car. So that's an extraordinary failure at this critical point in the shootout for Glen Seton. He'll be absolutely livid.
Well, more Bathurst heartbreak for Glen Seton. Could this have been the year that he finally tamed Mount Panorama? At the moment, it certainly doesn't look any good for the Ford Credit Racing team. 11 men still to come in the top 15 shootout. We'll be back after the break with more from Mount Panorama as they clean up the mess left behind by the Ford Falcon of car number 5.
It's been said that winning takes 10% talent and 90% hard work. But there's no doubt Colin Bond was blessed with a rare gift that made the hard work of winning a whole lot easier. Bond was a natural, as skilled on bitumen as he was on gravel. His success in the 1970s was prolific. 3 Australian rally titles backed by national touring car and manufacturer championship crowns with the Holden dealer team. His one and only Bathurst win came in 1969 at the wheel of a GTS 350 Monaro. He shared with fellow race ace Tony Roberts. Bond clearly had the ability to be a multiple Bathurst winner, but luck seemed elusive. In 1976, he and John Harvey were denied victory by the ailing Morris Fitzpatrick Tirana, and the following year, he obeyed team orders to finish second to Alan Moffat in Ford's famous 1-2 finish.
Welcome back with the 9th shootout in 10 rounds for Marcus Ambrose.
Marcus Ambrose heads out on his hot lap. The time to beat Rick Kelly at 2:10.04. And what Marcus has to contend with is that oil that's laid down on the circuit after Glen Seton's engine problem. They've put some absorbing material on the road surface to try and soak it up, but hopefully track conditions near Compton will be okay for him.
Yes, but you can't afford to be off in any one area on this lap, as you know, Mark, and it will be interesting to see what Marcus's post-shootout comments are about the condition of the track up here, but it won't deter him from having a big go.
Whoa, that's a huge go around Conacher Bend. You're right on the mark there, Cromley, and notice that Paul Wheel, his co-driver, had a good laugh in the pits when he saw that happen. Remember, this man is the defending pole sitter. Last year, he said it was the lap of a lifetime that put him in pole position for the greatest race that we've got. Marcus Ambrose is giving everything.
Oh,
he goes 0.2 underneath Rick Kelly's time. He was into the 209s in qualifying, came out in the warm-up and went into the 208s. And look at this, the Pertec Ford is all over the mountain, but 2 over their mountain up the top, and that will ruin his chance of going back-to-back poles.
Boy, it's getting ragged now. He's kept his foot into it across that daunting part of the circuit. McPhillamy Park, he had 2 wheels off on the grass. The oil flags are out.
It's the last thing you want to see on a lap like this, and this is critical now to see whether or not he can recover some turf. Oh, big understeer there. The oil has affected his turn in across Forest Elbow.
He's still 3/100ths of a second faster than Rick Kelly at the second split. Rick Kelly is the provisional pole sitter at the moment. So if this car can haul the mail in a straight line, he's still looking a prospect for pole. Ford has taken the last 3 pole positions here. Holden has won the last 3 races. Can Ford make it 4 in a row? Marcus Ambrose hard under brakes down into the chase. He's got to get this corner right. He's got 2 more turns before he takes the checkered flag.
First guy to use a lot of curb. He's on the road again on the exit of the chase. Really aggressive lap, and perhaps a little too much so.
Been a wild ride. Very spectacular.
Here he comes, 2:10.04's the time to beat. Marcus Ambrose is third on the timesheets at the moment at 2:10.101.
Sorry about that.
Let's check out that incident again for the Pertec Ford. What a wild moment. 3 wheels and then some. Coming off the bitumen, just managed to hang on to it over McPhillamy Park.
Why were you trying so hard? Had you made some changes? Were you confident that the car would improve on yesterday?
Yeah, we've been chasing the car. We made a change for the shootout, and we tried to make it more aggressive, and it was certainly that, and I just couldn't hold on to it.
Now, coming off the top of the mountain is a great spot to utilise our simulcam technology. Now, what this does is gives you an image comparison between 2 cars, the blue car of Marcus Ambrose, the red car of Rick Kelly, through this section of the track, simultaneously taking them through each turn, and allows us to compare both cars on that section.
Yeah, we'll have a look at this again, and you can see that Ambrose was like a nose in front, but he was way offline compared to Rick Kelly. And as the cars come down toward the middle part of the S's, Kelly actually noses in front. And this is a graphic demonstration of how close these cars are running in terms of their lap times. Quite often, it's down to like a bumper bar's width between them as they cross the start-finish line.
The Kmart Commodore is next out. Car number 51 of Kelly and Murphy. Todd Kelly getting the drive for this shootout lap. He has never gone backwards in the shootout as far as qualifying position goes throughout this season. He's always either maintained his qualifying position or bettered it in the 1-lap dash.
Well, they came very close to winning the Queensland 500, nail-bitingly close until a fuel problem late in the race handed the victory to the Calfex Hamilton Ford. And they were really pumped up to try and avenge that defeat. They finished 10th in the Queensland race. They managed to limp across the line. They're pumped up for a big result here. Look at these split times in the PlayStation 2 shootout clock. The first sector he's got to beat is a 52.44 from our provisional pole sitter, Rick Kelly, who also happens to be Todd Kelly's younger brother.
I spoke to Greg Murphy leaving the circuit last night, and he was pretty disappointed with the behaviour of the car. I went up got to the top of the mountain yesterday in qualifying to watch, and it looked like a handful. It's gone a little bit better in the warm-up this morning, Mark, so that's encouraging, but...
Oh, he's 7/100ths up on his brother too. So how close is it? 6.2 kilometres of bitumen. This great shot from the back seat of the Kmart Racing Commodore takes you for a ride around Mount Panorama. It's breathtaking stuff.
What an awesome ride it is too, through the skyline. Now he begins the decline. Look at the front of the Kmart Commodore starting to swivel around as he brings it through the dipper.
Yeah, just locked to break a little bit up on the paint then, Matthew. He just got a little bit out of shape there because that part of the track doesn't offer quite as much grip.
Well, let's see what happens here. You saw Marcus Ambrose get a big handful of understeer as he just got on a bit of that slippery stuff. Oh, Kelly gets plenty of oversteer coming out of there. He managed to keep it off the concrete wall.
Oil did that.
Just an indication of how slippery it is there around the Forest Elbow section.
3/100ths of a second quicker than his brother Rick. Todd Kelly now fires it down Conrod Straight. He'll get the Commodore up to 292, 293. Clicks an hour, now backs it all the way back for the Caltex chase. He's got to get these ones clean. If he does, he should beat the time of the 02 Holden Young Lions Commodore. Hips it under the Dunlop Bridge. Now to Murray's corner. Todd Kelly taking aim at his brother's time. Car number 51 looking to go under 2:10 to jump to the top, and he will, yes, 2:10.013.
They're coming up pit exit. Fairly out of shape at Forest Elbow, I don't put that on.
Absolutely millimetres from Todd Kelly as he brings it out the elbow.
Well, Todd, that looked like a great lap. How did it feel for you?
Yeah, the car's been pretty bad all weekend, but we've actually got it half sorted out. Whoever was out before me must have had a pretty out-of-shape lap because there was dirt all over the place up the top and down the bottom, as well as the oil that coming onto Conrod, which I got a little bit out of shape on. But, you know, if it wasn't for that, I think the car would have been pretty quick.
52-year-old veteran Larry Perkins back out for another shot and a one-lap dash around the mountain. He's done it plenty of times before.
It's absolute all about concentration, and I found even then in the laps I did yesterday to get into this thing, I found at the end of 2 laps I don't think I breathed at all. I was really puffing, so you concentrate that hard on things. Yeah, but that's what it is, concentration.
Concentration, the key. He went under the 2:10s in qualifying LP. He'll have to do that.
Lock the rear brakes into turn 1 then, Matty, and then to compensate tries to pick the throttle up early on exit. The thing gets crossed up, and that's a bit of an untidy start to the lap for Larry. He did not hold his breath yesterday for a couple of laps, and neither did most of us, because we were watching him trying to get in, and just at the very dying stages he managed to squeak in, and everybody was urging him on because it was actually a very, very good performance, but by G, he had to wind himself up tight.
Some of his teammates in the Castrol Perkins racing team, Russell Ingall, Stephen Richards in there too, watching the boss take on the mountain. He did a 2:10.03 in the warm-up for the top 15 shootout this morning. So can Larry crack it into the 2-minute 9-second bracket? The 6 times Bathurst winner.
Using a very different exit line from the cutting than Paul Morris. Larry chose to use all the road and then millimetres away from the exit there on the approach to turn 5.
Can you believe how closely they're shaving things? He gets it up on the curb. That fires him off to the one on the outside. And you can just see those little puffs of smoke from the front wheel as it gets heavily loaded on the suspension. That's the tyre actually rubbing underneath the guard. It's getting such a workout. Watch as the car drops down here into the dipper. More than a tonne of weight on that front right wheel.
I reckon that the car's behaving a little better than yesterday afternoon, so still a reasonable chance of a good time here from Larry. He's 0.2 slower than Todd at this point. Real disadvantage for these guys having to deal with that oil there. I mean, I know it's a very difficult thing to try and fix in the middle of a shootout, but certainly there's going to be probably the best part of half a dozen cars here who will suffer as a result of that.
Looking strong for the Bob Jane Team Arts 1000, this team. Larry Perkins and Paul Dumbrell finished 7th in the Queensland 500. And the Perkins engineering cars are renowned for their reliability and race speed, particularly at Mount Panorama. So could the 6 times Bathurst winner be in contention for the big one tomorrow?
Finished 8th last year. Of course, he was with Russell Ingall then, but that's all gone, that partnership now. He's teamed with Paul Dumbrell. Car number 11, LP, Larry Perkins. Can he make it up in the final sector? I don't think so. 6th, 2:10.85.
LP, was the oil on top of the circuit a factor at all?
Oh, well, it didn't help, that's for sure, but no, I had an untidy lap and didn't go very fast, yeah.
Gee, you were pushing hard, particularly up through Reed Park. They're exceptionally close to the wall.
They were small mistakes, as I say. It was untidy, and it didn't help the time at all.
8 men to go, and one of them is this man, the 2000 Bathurst champion, Garth Tander. The Valvoline Cummins Commodore begins his hot lap around Mount Panorama, the track that he and Jason Bargwanna tamed just a couple of years ago, and the time of Todd Kelly stands 2:10.013.
Well, if Garth gets it right, there's enough speed in this car to topple Kelly. He did a 2:09.62 in the warm-up this morning. This team has been getting better and better. Third outright in the Queensland 500 after a wretched sprint season.
It's a bit of a trademark of Garth's. He's obviously very in tune with his car. He knows what he needs to dial into it. And you watch over the course of a lot of weekends, there's a fracture in the windscreen there, so he's pounded across a curve perhaps at some stage. But he continues to rub on the car and continues to normally find speed as the weekend progresses. A good effort.
Out of the cutting, the steepest part of the circuit, a 1 in 6 grade as they continue the climb, 200 metres in total. There's Jason Bargwanna and Sir Jack Brabham, 3 times world champion, watching on from the Valvoline Cummins team. Oh, he's way down, those 0.6 of a second slower than Todd Kelly to the same point.
Saw the grimace on Bargs' face there too, just as he saw the same time that you did, Marco, and Garth Tander's got a lot of work to do to bring that time back and put car number 34 back up to the top of the list. They qualified in 10th when they won it from 2000, so they're probably not too superstitious about starting way up at the top of the grid. Now, through the dipper he brings it.
Got a little bit crossed up on the approach to the dipper there before. This is a great shot. Look at this.
The front right wheel, looking back at the front right wheel. A little hole we've cut in the engine bay, and you get a good look at how hard this suspension's working. You might even see the odd spark and puff of smoke as this wheel comes into contact with sections of the bodywork. They get a murder around here.
Have a look how little tyre there is on the road with the amount of negative camber in a straight line. Of course, it's not going to look like that when you load it up.
Can't wait to see that shot tomorrow afternoon sometime. Just see how ugly it's getting under there after 6 or 7 hours on the mountain.
How's the tyre distortion? Whoa. You can see how now the tyre's sitting on the road with load on it, but in a straight line with all that neg on there, there's not an awful lot on the deck.
Well, he's clawed it back. He's down to 0.4 of a second after sector 2. What can he do in the final sector? The critical run down Conrod Straight. He punches it onto pit straight, and he's 5th quickest, 2:10.31, 3/10 slower than Todd Kelly.
GT, those first 2 sectors looked a little slow. You seemed to get a bit of it back in the final sector. Was there a problem with the car at all?
Just had no front grip at all, Greg, for some reason. Didn't change the car from this morning's warm-up or qualifying yesterday. Just on this set of tyres, had no front grip. So sort of put in fairly heavily on the second half of the lap to try and gain some back, but it's nowhere near enough. So
who will be on the front of the grid for the Bob Jane T-Mart's 1000? That's how they stand at the moment. Remember that Glen Seton will probably start from position 15 because he didn't put a time down. We'll be back after the break on your home of motorsport, Network 10.
The switch to international Group A touring car rules in 1985 forced Ford teams to find an alternative to our big Aussie V8 Falcons, which had been rendered uncompetitive under the new regulations. And they found it with this car, the Ford Cosworth Sierra RS 500. The Ford Sierra was a fairly compact and lightweight 2-door hatchback that Ford sold in Europe and the USA. But when it came to Group A racing, they equipped it with this. A turbocharged version of its 2-litre twin-cam 4-cylinder engine put together by its competition partner Cosworth. Now, this engine was capable of power outputs exceeding 600 brake horsepower and a pretty compact package that included big brakes and aggressive aerodynamics, including this gigantic rear wing. Quite clearly, Ford had a winner on its hands. The European-based Texaco Sierra team dominated the 1987 Bathurst race, only to be excluded several weeks later due to a bitter debate over bodywork legalities. The Turbo Ford would, however, go on to claim back-to-back Bathurst crowns in 1988 with Tony Longhurst and Thomas Mazira, followed by Dick Johnson and John Bowe's dominant flag-to-flag victory in 1989.
10 News Update. Police believe America's serial sniper has struck again. That's 10 victims in 10 days. A new warning to Australia of possible terror.
The top 15
shootout continues with the 7th fastest man in final qualifying, Stephen Ellery, on a mission up here at Mount Panorama. He fancies himself in the big race.
Well, he should too, Billy, because Stephen Ellery's been on the podium here before, had a third with Tony Longhurst back in 1996. It's been a, well, pretty ordinary year, really, for car number 31. He's 24th in the championship now, and remember, he finished top 10 overall last season. 9th, in fact, overall for Stephen Ellery, but he's certainly shown across this season that he can get this super cheap auto Ford Falcon up to speed when necessary. Hopefully he can do it here up Mountain Straight.
This car was very quick yesterday in qualifying. From about this point on, the next sequence of 3 or 4 corners, he had some real serious pace.
Well, it looked like he was a little bit offline on the apex to that turn. Critical run up the shelf here. Steepest part of the circuit. PlayStation 2 shootout clock tells the story. 52.3 is the first sector time.
He hit the wall.
Brushes it, yeah.
He hit the wall then on the exit.
There's his co-driver, Luke Yilden, watching on from the pits. The 2000 Formula Ford champion. He gets very close to the concrete wall. He's half a second slower to the same point of the circuit, so you can see how he's fighting this car.
He's going to
costing him time.
Concrete dust back into pit lane when he gets it back there now across the skyline. Up over 210, 215 Ks begins the big climb down.
It's just staggering when you look at that road speed up around 200 kilometres an hour, Neil. That is so narrow up there.
When you take people for a ride around here in a road car and you sort of point out the speed that a V8 supercar achieves over there, they look at you like you're a liar, but it's a real deal.
2:10.43 was the best time Stephen Ellery did in the warm-up this morning. He's clawed it back just under half a second, slower than Todd Kelly up to 2 sectors.
The really difficult thing to do here is to balance the correct mix of aggression versus survival, and it's a very difficult thing to do for a one-lap blast, and it gets harder the further away from the warm-up. The guys that had the run straight after the warm-up are still in the rhythm. The guys that come later have got to gather it all back up again.
Mark Skaife said to me yesterday that, you know, you want to go 10 tenths, but the adrenaline running through this system to get that pole, the prestigious pole around here, makes it 10.5 tenths. We all know what that means, danger and disaster normally. The final turn for Stephen Ellery. He's been around about half a second outside the time of Todd Kelly, and he's 7th on the sheets for now, 0.65 behind the time of car number 51.
Well, it was a wild moment through the cutting. Let's have a look at that again on the Nintendo replay. You can see the back of the car just kissed the concrete wall and it slipped the other way as he came out of the turn.
Steve, that brush with the wall was costly. How hard were you pushing there?
A little bit too hard. You know, I had, about a mid-9 in mind, and I really tried hard to do it, but no, I'm not very happy with what I just did. I messed it up and got to make up for it tomorrow, but it's a big day tomorrow, so, we're pretty happy, but not really what I wanted.
Make no mistake about this. This man is the man to watch in the shootout. It is now Max versus the Mountain for the very first time. Mad Max Wilson, in only his 10th V8 Supercar Championship drive, is in his 8th shootout already. Can he get the better electrical Ford Falcon to beat that time and become the first man into the 209s? Car number 65. It's an interesting one, this one. His first ever drive around a most famous race circuit.
In the warm-up this morning, so the car and the driver certainly have the potential. They didn't finish the Queensland 500. Max Wilson and his co-driver Dean Cantor, they retired after 88 laps. Looking for a more consistent run here. Certainly got the speed as he drops them over the curbs there up toward the cutting.
He's adapted to these cars very well this year, particularly in qualifying mode. He seems to be able to get a lot out of the car. It hasn't been as successful for him in the races, but it's a huge step down in speed from a champ car to a V8 supercar, but a massive education in terms of dealing with the weight and the roll in the car. Very easy to lock a brake in these cars compared to an aero car, a single-seater vehicle, but he's done a great job up here this weekend. I think probably opened a few eyes.
Well, you can see there he's just under 4 tenths slower than provisional pole setter Todd Kelly in the Kmart Commodore.
He's opened a few mouths across the season too, because he's been jaw-dropping in his performances, especially in qualifying, as you say, but also not only in race results, Cromley, but he hasn't transferred that into the pole shootout either, because only once has he bettered his qualifying time. Those 7 previous ones, you can hear the car getting all out of shape as a result of that oil still on the track, so...
Well, he just fought that car all the way down that braking area. It was way offline. He just had to get right out of the gas to try and pull the nose around. That's cost him bulk time.
It's murdered the lap for him. He was crossed up on the approach to Forest Elbow, and I imagine that that's still as a result of the oil. So I don't think the car even actually touched the limiter down there then, so it would have really hurt its terminal speed at the bottom. Very frustrating for him.
It's a shame. It was looking like a pretty tidy lap before then. Just 4/10 down on provisional pole sitter Todd Kelly. Final turn for Max Wilson. They call him the Brazilian Bullet. I don't think he's been able to fire today. And he'll take 9th quickest.
Well, Max, that last part of the run down the mountain seemed a bit untidy. Was the oil a factor there from Glen Seton's car?
I don't think so. I think it was really my mistake because the oil was there before and nobody had any problem. I just tried a bit too hard and we really went wide, and that was a shame because that was a good lap up to there.
Right, let's use this simulcam replay to determine just what happened at the top of the mountain between Max Wilson and Todd Kelly. Todd was quickest through this section. We ghosted them both over each other, and you can see the different line and just how far the Kmart Commodore is ahead.
Well, Max Wilson was trying to match the time of Todd Kelly, who was quickest to that point. You can see there as they came down the hill, he was almost half a car length behind. That's how close it was.
We are down to the final 5 now. This man got pole position back in 95. Craig Lowndes, what is the secret to the one-lap dash?
We always talk about you can go from hero to zero or the reverse way. So, you know, if you get a good clean lap, well, then if you're happy with it, well, then you just got to put up and see what else other guys do. But really, to make a mistake in this one lap can be very crucial to your start grid.
Get ready for some fireworks. Give this man a competitive car, and he's absolutely electric, particularly around Mount Panorama. The time to beat at 2:10.01. He went a second under that in the warm-up this morning, so the car certainly has the speed. A little bit sideways as he comes out, trying to get these tyres up to temperature before he goes out on his hot lap. Thundering up Mountain Straight. He'll reach speeds of 250 kilometres an hour. 3 times V8 Supercar champion. Also a former Bathurst winner. Can Craig Lowndes and Neil Crompton do it again in 2002? Oh, you can see how he's struggling for grip there. Seems like Neil, these tyres really only reach their optimum about halfway through the lap.
That's right, Mark, and it'll depend a little bit on their starting pressures. He's used all of the exit space there, not quite as much as Steve Ellery, but that was a bit awkward for him on the exit of turn 2, the end of Mountain Straight. I was about to say that he picked up the throttle nice and early, but when he got onto the paint, that really hurt him, and you can see there that he's nearly 0.6 of a second slower on the split to Todd Kelly, and that's going to do fairly significant damage to his overall lap speed.
And Todd Kelly played it cool. He just had a very neat, consistent lap. And the cars we've seen run since have all got themselves into major trouble at some part of the circuit. So maybe that's the secret round here, particularly with this oil down in this part of the circuit. This is quite a lot of cars out. It was dumped by Glen Seton very early in the top 15 shootout. Craig's obviously aware of how tricky it is down through there. Takes a very conservative line. Well, he's clawed it right back. He's only 2/100 slower than Todd Kelly, so he's had an electric second sector.
He's very quick from Skyline to the elbow. His segment times down there all weekend have been very fast.
Carrying plenty of speed as he thunders under our camera. Just about flat through the king. Hard under brakes down into the chase. Can Craig Lowndes do it? He's certainly within striking distance if he gets these last 2 turns right.
On board with the green-eyed monster as he brings up Murray's corner now. Takes aim at this 2:10 that's been standing there from Todd Kelly. Can Craig Lowndes get underneath that time? He's had to fight from turn 2, but all the way to the checkered flag, and he comes in 5th. 2:10, 2:38 for the 00 Motorsport Ford Falcon.
Craig, the run-up through Griffins was a little bit ragged. Is that what cost you?
Well, it did. It cost me a little bit going up the hill and across the top of the mountain. The car's been working very well. Both Neil and I are very happy with the car. We made a slight change. Didn't work for us, but really we got one piece behind us and really looking forward to tomorrow.
Stephen Richards in car number 16 has the benefit of having another Castrol car already gone out on the circuit and managed to have a chat to Larry Perkins to get some insight into that Forest Elbow turn where the oil left behind Glen Seton has pretty much left a trail of slow times behind him. Todd Kelly still has the quickest time. Stephen Richards, of course, a 2-time Bathurst winner, paired with Russell Ingall for this one. They had a great Queensland 500, finished 2nd overall after a couple of pretty scary incidents. They got it together. They'll be a massive threat this weekend.
Oh, they're looking like an ominous combination, Matty. There's no doubt about it. What a strong driver combination. The car's very quick. You can expect these guys to be in the fight for the win all day.
Stephen looked very strong over the top of the hill yesterday in qualifying. At one point, he actually had a deflating tyre. They actually discovered huge understeer at the cutting, and so he came back in, put another set of tyres on, he went out and he really knocked in a great time, and his car looked very good.
Oh, wow! How close was that? 8/100ths of a second faster than Todd Kelly. Stephen Richards just shaving along the wall there. He turned into the biggest paint scraper if he'd got it wrong by a millimetre. 8/100ths of a second. How close do you like it? 6.2 kilometres of racetrack, and these guys dicing over centimetres.
Ran a little bit wide through the right-hander there just before he got to the dipper, and that probably affected his exit from there, but he's really pushing hard.
Down to this tricky part of the circuit. Glen Seton dropped a ton of oil earlier on. It's caught some drivers out. Looks like he's taken a nice clean exit too. He's 9/100ths, so he's almost 1/10 of a second faster than Kelly. Can you believe how close this competition is? He was one of only 5 cars to break into the 2-minute 8-second bracket in the warm-up this morning. So Stephen Richards, if he gets the rest of this lap right, is looking like a serious threat for pole position.
No problems for Stephen Richards so far. The 6.2-kilometre circuit doesn't have too far to go for car number 16. He's been clean. He's been calculated. He's been the best of the Castrol bunch all year. He's 6th in the championship, leading his team boss Larry Perkins and Russell Engel. He'll take over the main drive next year. Here he comes. Stephen Richards brings it around for the final time in the shootout, and he goes to first, the first man to go under 2 minutes 10.
Well, the Castrol team are applauding, and so they should. 3/100ths of a second.
Well, you're the first of the drivers into the 209s, but boy, up top of the mountain there, you don't mind getting it close to the wall.
I was having a bit of a go and really overcooked it there and probably lost a fair bit of time, but you've got to have a go in these situations. We want to start from the first couple of rows, and hopefully, well, we've done that at least anyway.
Oh, it's close, all right. There's 3 men to come. Jason Bright, Mark Skaife and John Bowe are ready to take on the mountain when we return from the Bob Jane T-Marts 1000.
The car for Mark Skaife in Queensland. Now, of course, they're in separate cars, taking each other on in the shootout.
And until yesterday, Woodsy, this man had the fastest time around Mount Panorama in a touring car. He was into the 208. Let's have a listen to Jason Bright, how he thinks about this lap.
It's the sort of place where the more laps you do, the quicker you could go, and it's a place that's just all about confidence. So there's so many corners across the top. Just about every corner across the top, it is, you learn something every lap.
Right now, he's down the bottom, takes aim at Hell Corner. The top, of course, is still to come. Car number 2, Jason Bright, the newest car out there in the V8 Supercar paddock. As I said, he did have the fastest time until yesterday. The 208 was beaten by John Bowe, and they're beaten again earlier this morning in the warm-up session by this man's teammate, Mark Skaife. This is the tricky one, up to the Conica bend, takes it out to the left. A similar story. There's a couple of cars before him.
Yeah, you can see when those rear tyres aren't up to temperature, they get a big amount of oversteer. Power sliding out of that turn. As the car grapples for grip, the tyres seem to come in about halfway through the lap. So that first part of the lap is a nail-biting moment. So the car now starting to get into the groove. 6/100ths of a second faster than Stephen Richards at the first split. What can he do here? The second split, a 1:27.89. That's the one he's going to beat. Stephen Richards. There's his teammate Thomas Mazzera watching on in the Holden Racing Team garage. Thomas, a former winner here in 1988 with Thomas Mazzera. He'd love to go it again with the Holden Racing Team. Down at the Victoria bit of dipper. He thunders down toward the elbow. His run across the top is almost over. It's been clean and accurate so far. But the split will tell the story. 3.35, so it's
good exit too.
Over 3/10 of a second faster than Stephen Richards at the same point of the circuit. So the really quick guys are starting to come now.
Can he be the first man to go into the 208s? Remember, there's only 2 guys to come, and one of them is his teammate. His teammate, who, by the way, he is realistically the only man who could stop him from winning the Touring Car Championship for the 5th time. Jason Bright, if he finishes in front of Mark Skaife, he'll put some pressure on those numbers that are starting to pull away. Now, under the Dunlop Bridge, car number 2.
Oh, this will be quick.
He talked about the top of the mountain, and he was so cool over the top. Now, the final turn, Murray's Corner. 209.979's the time to beat. He does it. Pole position at the moment for Jason Bright.
Almost 7/10 of a second faster. Holden Racing Team are delighted.
It's pretty good, pal. Not a bad lap.
Well, boy, you shaved some valuable tenths off Stephen Richards' time. It looked like a really clean lap.
It was a good lap, but, you know, I think the track's just getting better and better every lap. You know, every time a car goes over the oil at Forest Elbow, it just gets better, but it was a pretty clean lap, and, you know, I don't know whether there was much more in it.
Let's take you back up to the top of the mountain now, and we compare with simulcam Stephen Richards and Jason Bright. The interesting thing here will be Jason Bright's different line as he comes through the S's. Just take a look at the way that Bright is ducking and weaving on a totally different line to the car number 16, Castrol Commodore, right on the inside there.
Yeah, well, you can see at this point he's level pegging. Look at that. They were so close in terms of their lap times. They were virtually level pegging at that part of the track.
Now down to business for car number 1, Mark Skaife, a 3-time Bathurst champion, a 3-time pole sitter. Obviously, he knows the secret to do it around here.
The hard piece of this is that you actually have to process the information really quickly. So when you first get to the first corner, Hill Corner, and then at the end of Mountain Straight, you've got to process how much grip you've got. So each corner that changes because you only get one lap. So as you do it, you arrive at that particular corner, turn the corner, and then you've got to try to gauge how much grip you've got for the next corner and the next one and so on. So it's, in that respect, it's really hard. I mean, it's one of the toughest laps of the year.
Well, if anyone's going to do it, it's this man. He was knocking on the door of a 2:07. Can you believe it this morning? A 2:08.19 in the warm-up.
The car was beautifully balanced across turn 1. There was no protest from the front tyres. There wasn't a millimetre left on the top of the exit ripple strip. This is the braking area for turn 2. This is where Gardner went off yesterday with the brake failure. Straight into that wall ahead there.
Well, he's had the advantage of some information from his teammate Jason Bright saying the track is in good condition now.
Notice that Mark was just tapping the brake to make sure he had pressure as he approached the cutting. It's a terrific shot, gives you an idea of the delicacy involved, the judgments, the decisions that are made. Flat shift, kick the throttle, kick the clutch pedal.
Look at this, 4/100ths of a second in it between the two Holden Racing Team Commodores. Boy, Jason Bright's laid down a tough time so far. This is going to be a hell of a lap for Mark Skaife if he can knock off his teammate.
This is the crucial area, isn't it? Because Bright was so clean through the top of the mountain, you'd expect Skaife to be the same through the VB dipper.
A little squeal of the tyres there as he came down, just juggling this act. 1,350 kilos of motor car. Not an easy job over one lap. You can see his feet are very, very busy on the pedals. Got to get this exit right. Nice fast exit. Look at that. He's found half a second on his teammate across the top. Absolute blistering pace in Sector 2.
He's clearly taking aim at a 2:08 and putting himself in the position to claim yet another Bathurst pole position. He's the defending champion on this track. He's teamed with Jim Richards, a man who he's won it with before twice. 292 kilometres an hour as the Holden Racing Team #1 Commodore comes through the chase.
No other car was on the limiter for as long at the bottom of Conrod as this car. So Mark made a beautiful exit. Same again into the final corner. The car protesting on the hard cut at 7,500 RPM in 4th gear.
He's got the times on the board. Mark Skaife goes straight to the top of the timesheets. 2:08.828, a blistering lap.
Pit limit button coming in the pit.
Well, Mark, a 2:08.8 was a stunning lap, but were you concerned that the grip level wasn't quite right?
Yeah, we definitely lost a little bit of grip then, Rusty. But compared to the warmth this morning, it was a bit cooler, a bit more cloud cover, and actually changed the car a little bit, made it a bit too lively at the back, but that's not a bad lap for the conditions.
All right, let's check how they stand now after 14 men. Skaife and his co-driver Jim Richards. 2:08.827 is the time to beat. Brighton Mazera second, Richards, then Kelly, then Rick Kelly. Bring you all the way down to Glen Seton in 15th position. Remember, Jones and Bowe are next. JB behind the wheel.
If one man's going to knock off Mark Skaife, it's this man, John Bowe, the last man on the circuit. Tyres critical in the top 15 shootout.
We've been having a bit of trouble getting the tyres to come on quick enough. I've been doing my best laps in the second, third, sometimes fourth lap. So as I set out on this, I'm not sure. I mean, I need it to happen on the first flying lap, really. So, I mean, if I can get the tyres up to temperature in time, I mean, I'm sure I can do that same sort of lap.
Well, what can he do, John Bowe? Maximum pressure here. The last car on the circuit. It's a Ford against the fastest Holden, a 2:08.82 for Mark Skaife.
Just got through a moment ago, Mark, that they dropped a little bit of pressure out of the tyres just prior to the start of the shootout because the ambience rising, the track temperature's rising, and they're looking for a target pressure. And if you suggested early on, they want to get these tyres at their optimum pressure as early as they can in the lap and hold them there.
Look at this nice exit so far, John Bowe. Boy, oh boy, ultra-experienced driver. He's won just about everything there is to win in Australian motorsport. 2 times winner here with Dick Johnson. He goes with the Aussie Male team. Brad Jones Racing done a tremendous job knocking this car into shape. They missed the whole first practice session on Thursday with an engine problem. And look at that.
3/100ths of a second.
Quicker. So he's really stepped up to the plate. Look at the Aussie Male team watching on from the garage. They'll have fingers, toes, everything crossed as their man, John Bowe, who has set the mountain alight so far. Can he do it again in the top 15?
His was a landmark lap in qualifying to make sure that he was the last man out in the top 15 shootout. It was really white knuckle and white face stuff from John Bowe. He made no complaints about the fact that he was pretty much petrified after that lap. Car number 21, they thought about running car 888 here. That's clean through Forest Elbow, but he's lost some time across the top of the mountain.
Well, it's 2/10 of a second. What can they do in a straight line here? It's all down on Conrod Straight for the Aussie Male team. John Bowe giving it everything he can. You want to hear that engine on the rev limiter long before he turns into the chase to know that he's hauling plenty of speed. Down hard under brakes into the chase for the final time. We hear he's the fastest terminal speed down Conrod Straight so far. Goes to the Aussie Male Ford. So John Bowe's done everything right so far. But can he knock off Mark Skaife? He's got a 2/10 of a second deficit to make up.
It's an incredible time to beat, isn't it, Skaife? This is Holden versus Ford for the top spot for the Bob Jane T-Marts 1000. He will start alongside Mark Skaife. John Bowe.
Good job. That's a great effort.
Does a 2:09.
You're only a fraction off the race.
09.
2:10. That's a good job.
They're pretty happy. It'll be Ford v Holden, and Mark Skaife is our pole sitter for 2002.
Well, at the end of the first sector, it looked like you had his measure. Yeah, I mean, the lap was quite a good lap, except I was just a tad careful at Forest Elbow because I was a bit unsure about their oil, and I think I lost, enough time there, like a tenth or maybe better. But the car's pretty good. I've got to be, I'm quite happy about it. And there's not that many people, they tell me, win from pole position, so...
Let's confirm all those numbers for you. There was only one man to go under 2 minutes and 9 seconds, and he will have pole position for the Bob Jane T-Marts 1,161 laps ahead. John Bowe and Brad Jones will start from position number 2. Then it's Brighton, Mazira, Richards and Ingle, Murphy and Kelly, Rick Kelly and Pretty from 6th, Ritter and Alan Jones from 7th, Ambrose and Wheel from 8th. Position 9 will be Craig Lowndes and Neil Crompton. 10th, where they won it from in 2000, Tander and Bargwana. Then Morris and Wakefield, Ellery and Yulden, Perkins and Dumbrell, Wilson and Canto, and Glen Seton has a lot of work to do to get that car right, to get it to the start line of the Bob Jane T-Marts 1000. We'll take a break. Be back with more from the mountain right after this.